Hey, welcome back everybody. Welcome back to the channel. We will be doing something different on the Burb today. So I ended up going wheeling and I ruined a couple of my tires. A tree actually went through the sidewall of one of my tires, and yeah, so I had to buy all new tires. So instead of going with the 33 by 1120, I found some 35 1250 20s. And there they are. But now my problem is, if I go wheeling, they stick out way too far. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to end up taking off the 2-inch wheel spacers on the rear and then the 1.5 inch up front. And I'm going to be moving the 1.5 inch wheel spacers from the front to the rear and not run anything on the front. And that should put me about a square foot as far as the tires sticking out. So what I'm gonna do is jack it up. I got some spares I'm gonna have to put on the rear because I only have one jack, no jack stand, so you do what you gotta do. So I figure I'll show you what the fitment is right now, and yes, it looks good, but I'm rubbing really bad right there. On the rear they stick out pretty good, but when I went wheeling, as you can see, the tree went into the side. And then also down here I ended up breaking a rear sway bar link, and yeah, tore some stuff up. So today that's what I'm gonna do, is just get it to where the fitment actually sits in a little bit more, make it more trail friendly. So I'm gonna go ahead and jack this up and get things rolling. But I do love the stance of this. If I didn't go wheeling, then I'd keep it, but I love to take this thing off-roading. So we'll be swapping some stuff out. Alright, so now that we have it jacked up, all we're gonna end up doing is just taking the wheel off, and then we'll take the spacer off and put the wheel and tire back on the front end. Alright, so you can see the wheel spacer right here. This whole thing will be coming off, going back to stock. So now I just need to get a volunteer to hit the brakes for me so I can break these loose, because this little impact won't do it. And I move in closer. I'm going to try to take these off with this impact. So we will see. No. Alright, so now with that spacer off, I'm going to put this wheel and tire back on and go. Okay, so now you can see it. It'll sit pretty close to flush. Stick just a little bit out, but that will most definitely help out with turning and less stress on the front end. Just lower that down. Not bad, so now let's go to the other side. Let's take care of this. And then what I ended up doing was I grabbed a breaker bar and I broke these lug nuts first, because this railway drill is not, impact is not that strong. So if you're curious, I did not drive with the lug nuts like this. I broke them loose. Pretty simple, it doesn't take too long. The rear are going to take a lot longer to do because I actually have to cut the wheel studs. Just trim them up. And as you can see, what I end up doing is rolling the tire on my foot so I can use my foot to help me lift it and align it. Makes it a lot easier, less strain on your back. So
why do you take off this?
what's that?
Why do you have this tied up over here?
Because I'm taking the wheel spacers off and switching them around, bud.
Then why is this one off?
Because
Is it popped?
it's not popped. We didn't pop a tire today.
You popped another one.
Yes, I have popped one, huh? Where'd that?
Then why are you using this one? On the side up here. Okay, I don't care. That doesn't hurt me.
Alright, so as you can see, it doesn't take too long to take wheel spacers off, but when we get to the rear, I'll show you exactly what I got to do. It's going to be a little bit more difficult as there's a little portion of the stud that I got to trim off, and I'll show you that. All right, so we got the rear tire off, and what I'm going to do is install these 1.5-inch wheel spacers. And as you can see, just the very tips of the studs, the stock, they stick out. So I'm gonna have to cut just the tip off. And you can see on these studs, it's got a smooth shaft and then it goes into the threads inside. So I'm not even gonna be hitting the threads at all. I'm just gonna cut the tips off and go from there. So that way the wheel will actually seat all the way against the spacer itself and I won't have any issues. And yes, these spacers are hub centric, meaning they actually sit directly on the hub, as you can see right there. So all the weight isn't on just the studs, it's still on the hub itself. And then you won't have any issues with the spacers breaking or anything like that. Alright, so after I cut that, all I did was round off the edges. Now let's check our fitment. And all the studs are back inside, so that way I got a flush mount. So now we'll go ahead and put the lug nuts on.
That was open. Anthony's freaking doors unlocked.
Yeah, that's because I moved it and didn't lock it.
Yeah, it doesn't matter for the doors. Can I try to get that mask down in here?
Alright, now the torque specs are 140. I don't have a torque wrench, so I'm just gonna kind of judge it. Alright, so I had the wife come out and help me real quick. I'm not gonna film her on this, but got all these torqued down, so now I'm gonna put on the tire. And these aren't light, so alright, I'm gonna go around and do all four real quick, and I'll show you what the finishing result is. Alright guys, so we got it all finished. There is absolutely no wheel spacers in the front, and you got the 1.5 inches in the rear. And it's got a pretty good fitment now. And I did cycle through the steering, and it actually turns a lot better. It's not as much to push around. is as the wheel comes out, that's just a lot more that it has to make that turn. So it's a little bit easier to turn on it. And it should help me out as far as wheeling, and I actually have clearance now. When I turn it, I got like a 1/4 to a 1/2 inch now, instead of just rubbing right against that metal underneath. That's it. Alright, so that's all for this video. We got the wheel spacers off, moved the front ones to the rear, so now there's just 1.5 inches. No wheel spacers up front. They don't stick out as far, maybe a couple inches at the most, rather than 4, 5. But should be a little bit better off wheeling. Should be able to get into a little bit tighter spaces. So we'll have to go test it out. But thank you guys for watching, appreciate it. Have a good day.